Welcome, everybody. My name is John Cezanne. I'm a member of the Olympia Indivisible Endorsement Team, and I want to welcome you all to Indivisible's Meet the Candidates Virtual Town Hall. Thanks for being here. The Olympia Indivisible Endorsement Team hopes that the Meet the Candidates events will help you to make an informed decision when it comes time for our endorsement vote. At the end of June, we will be sending a ballot to our over 600 Olympia Indivisible members to vote for the candidates that they want Indivisible to endorse. For those who couldn't attend the live event or missed any part of it, we'll be recording it and posting it to the Olympia Indivisible website. Additionally, the endorsement team will present an evaluation of the candidates at an all-member meeting to be held just prior to the endorsement vote, which has currently just been scheduled for Saturday, the 26th. It'll be probably Saturday morning sometime. So mark your calendars for that one. Last week, we had the pleasure of interviews with Melissa Denton and Amy Evans, two of the 5 candidates in the election for Port of Olympia Commissioner. If you missed either of those sessions, these are available for viewing on the Olympia Indivisible website now, so you can see those. Today we'll be meeting with Joel Hansen, the 3rd candidate in the District 3 race to replace retiring Commissioner Zeta. And Jesse Simmons, and we'll be meeting Jesse Simmons, one of the 2 declared candidates in the District 2 race to replace retiring Commissioner Greger. Up first is Joel Hansen. Joel has a long history of service to our community and currently serves on POCAC, the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Council. He has also been active as a member of the Tumwater Planning Commission. I still believe he belongs on that too. And the City of Olympia Advisory Committee to the Parks and Recreation and the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. We applaud Joel, as we do all the candidates, for their willingness to put themselves out there on the line to serve all of us and the people of Thurston County. So Joel Hansen, I'll hand it over to you. Take 5 to 10 minutes to tell us all about yourself and why you want to serve on the Port Commission. And then we'll open it up for 30 minutes of Q&A. We have several questions that were pre-submitted, but any of you in the audience who wish to submit any questions, please submit them at any time into the chat preceded by the letter Q. So with that, Joel, it's over to you.
Thank you, John, and thanks everybody for the opportunity. Because I'm still pretty new to this, I'm a first-time candidate. This is my first town hall. I'm going to start by reading something I've already prepared, but then we can go off script and take it from there. So my name is Joel Hansen. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm pleased to announce my candidacy for the Port of Olympia Commission. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to introduce myself. I was born and raised in Olympia. My dad was a state worker and my mom worked for the phone company. Personally, I've had a varied and diverse career, adding tools to my toolbox at every step along the way. In my 20s and early 30s, I worked in finance, marketing my services as socially responsible investments for progressive investors. I may have been a little ahead of my time, but I was then hired away. I sold my financial practice in, I think it was 2008, and was hired away to become the 3rd full-time employee of a health and nutrition vocational school startup right here in Tumwater, Washington. And that business we grew from right here in Tumwater, where we trained and certified about 50 students a year through South Puget Sound Community College. And in the 8 years I was there, we grew that business to operating in 28 cities across the United States, 2 in Canada and 2 in Australia. I wore many hats when I was there at the Nutritional Therapy Association. I started as the business manager, but I was the director of public policy when we found we needed one, and also was the chair of the Global Action Fund, where we we gave away 10% of our profits to causes that we felt met the mission of our organization. That work led me to regenerative agriculture. I attended a lot of conferences and events around holistic nutrition at the time, and found myself ending up over in the corner talking to the people who actually grew the properly prepared, nutrient-dense whole foods that we were talking about in our nutrition classes, and got to know many practitioners of regenerative agriculture. And I consulted when I left the Nutritional Therapy Association when my son was born, because I didn't want to travel anymore. I ended up consulting with farmers and food producers who saw the potential of ecosystems to mitigate and reverse our climate emergency. Today, I develop solar energy systems, from systems of 5 kilowatts to power a tiny home up to 50 megawatt systems that power cities and industries. All of the stops along the way, I've added tools in my toolbox, and it's informed my approach to problem solving, an approach that I would probably describe as holistic. Today, I have my own family, an amazing wife, Anne, and our 4-year-old son, Fisher. I feel very fortunate to be raising my son in this community where I myself grew up, and I believe in giving back through community service. I've served as a precinct committee officer, first 20 years ago in Tumwater Precinct 408, and today I'm the precinct committee officer for Tumwater Precinct 409. In those 2 decades, I've had other opportunities to learn and grow through community service at the City of Olympia on the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, as an associate supervisor at the Thurston Conservation District, and for nearly a decade on the board of directors of the Tulip Cooperative Low Income Credit Union, where we worked tirelessly to provide loans and financial services to our unbanked neighbors whose only other options really were predatory payday lenders and pawn shops. I served on Tumwater's 2017 Parks and Recreation Task Force, and later was the treasurer for the successful campaign to create a Metropolitan Parks District in Tumwater. I'm a 2005 graduate of Leadership Thurston County, a member of American Mensa, and a member of the National Eagle Scout Association. Today, I serve on the board of directors of the Tumwater Farmers Market as the co-chair of the South Sound Food Systems Network and a member of the Thurston Thrives Coordinating Council. I'm also on the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee, and this year I'll finish my 2nd term on the Tumwater Planning Commission. I'm proud of all that work, and I look forward now to stepping into a new role to continue to build toward our shared vision of Thurston County with a healthy natural environment, a constellation of vibrant communities, a supportive social fabric, and a prosperous economy. These visions will not simply become reality. As we look to the future, there's much work to do. I'm ready to bring the experience of my service to bear on the issues of our day as a commissioner at the Port of Olympia. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's quite a resume. So let's talk about some of the issues about the port. So you talk about the concept, this is part of your philosophy that came over in your questionnaire. You talk about the concept of being a good ancestor in relation to the job of port commissioner. Could you elaborate on that, and how can a port commissioner be a good ancestor, and what do you exactly mean by that?
That is something I didn't come up with. That I came across it recently reading some books by Mark Stevenson, someone who is, I think he calls himself a reluctant futurist, but he's someone who consults with some of the largest organizations on the planet, looking toward the future and preparing for the future. And what he said, I'll paraphrase, but what he said in the book was that the organizations that he works with that are most successful are the ones that ask themselves the question, are we being good ancestors? And I was so struck by that, I wrote it in Sharpie and taped it to the mirror in my bathroom. And I've been ruminating on that idea for the last couple of months. And to me, what it means is the decisions we make today, how will they how will they stand the test of time? What will people think of the decisions that we're making in 50 years, in 60 years, 70 years, 100 years, 200 years? What if there's a record of what we've done, and I guess in the digital age there always will be, I imagine. How will people in the future look at the choices we made and the decisions that we've made, and what will they say about them? I have a 4-year-old son, and I grew up here in Olympia, and I'm happy for him to grow up here in Olympia. But when I look at the natural environment here, as one example, when I go take him on a hike to Woodard Bay, or I even just walk along the waterfront downtown, it's not the same as I recall when I was a child. And I think being a good ancestor in terms of our natural environment is not just sustainable, being sustainable anymore. I think we were long past that point. I want to talk about regeneration. I want to talk about restoration. I want to talk about bringing back biodiversity to Budd Inlet. I want to talk about cleaning up legacy pollution. I want to talk about having a vision of the future that would include perhaps a shellfish fishery in lower Budd Inlet again, and us shipping Olympia oysters out to the world like we did 100 years ago and we're famous for. We couldn't do that now because of dioxin and other issues with water quality. And maybe it's something we can't achieve in my lifetime or even my son's lifetime, but I believe we can reverse all that degradation, and we could set a course for a healthy and renewed environment. Budd Inlet being one example where the port plays a fairly significant role. The port properties in Tumwater. I happen to live immediately next door to port property in Tumwater here at the airport, and it's a vanishingly small piece of the original Puget Sound Prairie, where the Olympia Airport sits, and it's a really unique habitat, and it was we have opportunities to restore that habitat and protect some threatened and endangered species there with thoughtful management. So when I read the words, "Are we being good ancestors?" and when I think about that, I think about what can we do that will put us on a path to a better future for my son, for his generation, for future generations. Frankly, we've been using our limited resources on this planet at a rate that it exceeds. We've been using more than our fair share for many generations, and I don't want to leave my son holding the bag. I want to be able to reverse that trend, at least in whatever way I'm able to. And so it struck. So I'm a 3rd generation Eagle Scout, and was once an assistant scoutmaster for a time. And in scouting, we were always taught to leave the campsite better than we found it. And frankly, that says it right there. I just want to leave it better than I found it. That to me is being a good ancestor.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think that's a vision that we can all agree on and buy into. One of the ideas you touched on in the questionnaire response was that the port has a role in vocational training. How do you envision that to happen?
So I think the port has a role, obviously a mission of economic development. When I think of economic development, I think of jobs. I think of creating jobs that can't be replaced by automation, jobs that provide a living wage, where people get training and advancement opportunities for benefits, for the satisfaction of a good quality job, and often those are the things that come with representation by a labor union. And so when I think of economic development, I think of jobs, and I think a big part of that is developing a workforce. I have experience with workforce development and professional development at the Nutritional Therapy Association, which was a vocational school registered here in the state of Washington. And I know that the jobs of the future are not the jobs of yesterday, and many of them aren't even the jobs of today. I think about a question someone once asked me at a conference was, how do we prepare our children for jobs that don't even exist yet? And I think, how do we prepare anyone for the jobs of tomorrow? I look at things like being able to just recently, the port's given the authority to provide broadband internet. I look at ports, for instance, in Whitman County. I look at the research and development hub that they have, and all the jobs that are created in high tech, crop sciences, veterinary medicine, all the things that they're doing in Pullman. We can do those things here too. I look at the transition of our energy systems, and particularly our transportation system, to electrification. General Motors isn't going to make any internal combustion engines after 2030 or 2035, I think they announced. Well, we don't have nearly enough mechanics to work on electric vehicles. They're just, aren't the trained people to do it. We need to develop institutions and opportunities for people to get the training to be skilled and to do these kinds of jobs that are coming in the future. And I think the port has a role to play in that through partnerships with our universities and colleges and community colleges, and through partnerships with the other jurisdictions in the county. I think that we can work together to attract the kinds of businesses we want and develop the workforce that they need once they're here.
Okay. I surmise from your answer about climate change that you see a significant role for the port in addressing this issue. Can you just discuss your ideas with regard to the port and how it can influence climate mitigation?
Well, I see a significant role for every person on the planet to address this issue. I think it's all hands on deck. With regards to the port, I think the first step is for the port to adopt the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. I'm currently part of a subcommittee on the Citizens Advisory, on the POCAC, the Port Citizens Advisory Committee, that is working to accomplish that. We are hopeful that we'll get the commissioners to sign on and adopt the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, and then we're working to develop an action plan of strategies the port can use, such as electrification of their fleet and their rolling stock, whatever vehicles the port has, including log loaders and other things. Can we transition them to electric? Of building clean energy generation systems such as solar. I think the port, that's pretty low hanging fruit in my mind. I'm familiar with the solar industry, and I think the port has a lot of opportunity to build solar on the buildings that they have, and also at the airport properties, to upgrade systems and with the real estate, the buildings that they own. They can upgrade HVAC systems, they can increase the energy efficiency of their buildings. So there's some really low-hanging fruit, some things that can be done quickly and easily. There's programs through the Department of Enterprise Systems that allows municipal entities like ports to accomplish those projects without paying for them up front, but through paying them for them over time through the savings that are created. So I think those are some of the first steps. Looking further down the road, I would like to see the port getting involved more in the drawdown of carbon out of our atmosphere using ecosystem services and regenerative agriculture, supporting farmers in our county and the transition to regenerative agriculture and investing in our local food system to help with that transition to a agricultural system that doesn't diminish the earth, but actually draws carbon out of the atmosphere, enhances soil quality, and enhances ecosystem services for all of us.
On your another answer that you gave on the questionnaire was about the proposed lease arrangement with the Panattoni Corporation. And you said you were opposed to that arrangement and to the process by which it had been approved. Can you explain, and how did this process go down and why were you opposed? Sure.
I think the biggest thing for me is that I'm kind of on both sides of this because I am on the Tumwater Planning Commission. I have relationships with several of the folks on the Tumwater City Council, and then I'm also on the POCAC, and I did that deliberately. I thought that there may be a way, if there was just a volunteer citizen sitting on both sides of the fence, that maybe there would be a way to foster stronger relationships between the two jurisdictions. And frankly, with regard to the Panattoni deal, the port has maintained an attitude of they're going to go it alone. They're going to do what they do without considering the input they received from the Tumwater City Council or from the citizens of Tumwater and Thurston County.
Joel, can I interrupt you just a minute?
Yeah.
Maybe some of the people in the audience don't know exactly what that's referencing to the Panattoni deal and the new market development. Maybe you could explain that first and then continue.
Yeah, sure. So the new market campus is the port-owned property that is to the west of the Olympia Airport, between the Olympia Airport and I-5, and then some properties also to the north of the airport along Tumwater Boulevard. There is 199 acres of forested area in that larger new market campus that is subject now to an agreement between the port and Panattoni Development. The port has signed an agreement with Panattoni to give them the exclusive right to attract business and development to that spot. I think the issues that I have are just the speed with which this agreement was signed. I think it became public knowledge and was executed by 2 of the 3 port commissioners within a matter of a couple of weeks. The Tumwater City Council was asked to weigh in. Mayor Kmet wrote, I think, a very thorough and detailed letter about the concerns that the City Council had, and asked the Port Commission to slow the process down, take some time, address all the issues, address the issues that have been brought up by community members and citizens and residents of the area. And rather than engage in that process, that the next meeting, the Port Commission just approved the lease agreement. I think that was a mistake. I think it was a mistake to not build the relationship with Tumwater and to not work through the concerns that people had. I drove up to DuPont during that time when this was being discussed, and looked at a Panattoni development, one of these large warehouses. And I don't think people understand how big they are. I don't think people understand what this would mean to have something that big. And in this situation, it would be immediately across the property line from Bush Middle School. And I don't think that the numbers of jobs created and the economic impact, I think that the numbers that the Port Commission is relying on, I think they are very rosy. I don't think that a development like this will create the kinds of jobs that we want. Warehouses, for the square footage, they create very few jobs, and all the jobs that they create are at risk of being lost to automation, including the truck drivers in the next decade or so. So I don't think those are the kinds of jobs we want. I don't think that that's the kind of industry we want right next door to our kids' schools. Every kid in the Tumwater School District goes to school within a half a mile of I-5. And I don't know if you know this, but currently in America, more than 50% of children are living with at least one chronic disease, asthma being one of the biggest, most prevalent ones. And the proximity to freeways is an enormous risk factor. We can't mitigate that one in Tumwater. We have a freeway that runs right through our town. But we should mitigate every other risk factor that we have the ability to control. So putting a warehouse with diesel trucks coming and going every single day next to a middle school, I have serious reservations about that. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have a whole bunch of questions that have come in the chat. So I'm gonna read the first one, and then because this one, well, it's just a good question that I think would be better if I read it, and then I'll have some of the other people just raise their hands. I'll call on them and let them ask their questions. So this comes from Bob Jacobs. The marine terminal has been losing money every year for as long as anyone can remember, lots of money. Taxpayers cover the losses, meaning that a huge international corporation, Weyerhaeuser, receives a large annual subsidy from Thurston County taxpayers. Efforts to diversify and increase cargoes have failed because the marine terminal is so poorly located for shipping. What would you propose doing about this situation?
Well, I think we need to look at every possible option to utilize the marine terminal to create jobs, and not necessarily just longshore jobs. Right now, there's the Earth Homes is building tiny homes down at the port warehouse, and now that they've gone through months of research and development, and they've kind of got their process down, I want to find out, can we market those tiny homes to mitigation sites in other parts of the state? Can we build them and put them on barges and ship them to King County, ship them to Pierce County? Can we fill orders for those kinds of, for those mitigation site homes from other jurisdictions? That would create jobs. That would create jobs at the port, and it would create cargoes coming and going. Are there other cargoes that we can move through our port? I would like to see us not just shipping raw materials out of our port, but shipping finished goods out of our port. Can we take those raw materials and turn them into finished goods here in our community with skilled jobs and craftspeople, and then ship finished goods out of our port, either by sea or by land? So I think what we need new ideas, and we need to look to the future. What is what are the jobs of the future? What are the products that we can create with the resources we have? When I was working in investments, I would, you don't always pick a winner. You want to buy low and sell high, but it doesn't always happen that way for whatever reason. And often I would find myself in a position telling a client that this stock that we bought, or this investment that we bought, we need to sell it at a loss. We need to just take our losses and move on. And often what people would say is, well, let's just wait until it comes back to where it was when we bought it, and then we'll sell it. And that emotionally, that feels good because you didn't lose anything. But that's not always the best the role of an advisor is to take emotion out of the equation. And so I found myself saying this thing again and again to my clients. I would say, today we woke up and we are standing on the starting line. And whatever happened before today doesn't matter. The only thing we can affect is what we do moving forward. And so we have to take whatever skills and experience and knowledge we have, whatever resources that are at our disposal, and make the best decisions moving forward. And so that's what I want to do with regard to the four lines of business the port's involved in. I don't want to rehash the past as much as I want to look to the future. I want to see what opportunities are available to us and make the best decisions moving forward, to create good paying jobs, to restore our environment, and to bring economic activity to Thurston County.
Okay, we have a question from Janine. Janine, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, thanks. So I appreciate that viewpoint about your positivity about the marine terminal, but I have to look at the last few decades of what they've been doing in the marine terminal, and either there's just a huge lack of vision going on down there in terms of new cargoes, or it's not really a very viable marine terminal. And so I'm excited about your nutritional and food systems background, and I'm curious. That's kind of a two-part question, I guess. Is really, can you speak a little bit more about why you think the marine terminal is viable? I like the idea about tiny houses, but then again, like, what else could we do to really make that a financially viable situation and an environmentally viable situation, which it has not been? And then also, on that front, what do you envision for food systems support that the port could provide, to make, we have a lot of food hub here, and do you have any ideas or visions for how that could be realized as a port with port support?
Absolutely. As far as the food system stuff, I've been having conversations for the last 10 years about commercial kitchen space, about processing facilities that would allow our farmers in Thurston County and points further south, Lewis County, Clark County, to process their produce, and package it in such a way that they can sell it into the institutional system, to hospitals, to school districts, things like that. And I think the port has a role to play there. I think that's an economic development play. I also think that one of the things when our farmers are surveyed about what they need cold storage. The port could play a role there. The properties that the port owns in Tumwater, all the food that is being grown in Lewis County, Clark County, South Thurston County is moving through Tumwater along I-5 to the markets in Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, Lacey. That is a perfect location to develop processing facilities, to develop cold storage, so that those producers can come up, drop off their goods, and put them into a system where value is added, and then the product can move on to the markets further to the north. I raise poultry. I raise chickens and ducks here for meat and eggs for my family, and in some years enough to sell some to other folks. And I know that there's a lot of pastured poultry producers in our county that you can buy from them at the farmers market, or buy direct from their farms. And I know that they cannot scale because there are no USDA certified processing facilities for their poultry. There's only two in the state. One's owned by Pilgrim, the other owned by, they're both corporate owned. They don't serve small farmers. And for a very small investment, we could develop a processing facility where farmers could be growing their poultry, dropping it off at a facility that processes, packages, and puts it into the marketplace, so that those farmers could scale their operations, and they could go from raising 500 birds a year to raising 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. I've got a friend in LaGrange, Indiana. Until recently, he was the largest pastured poultry producer in the country, Greg Gunthorpe. And he was in this situation. He had to borrow a couple of $1 million to build his own facility in order to scale his operation and sell into the markets in Chicago and Indianapolis. And because he had to do it on his own, there's only 3 or 4 farmers in the country that have been able to do what he's done. It's a dead end to growth for people who are raising healthy food, raising it the right way. They just can't access the capital and would be crazy to take the risk to build their own facilities. That's an economic development play where a port and the county and the WSU extension could be working together to help build these systems and facilities that can allow our producers to scale up, to put money back into the rural economies in Thurston County, and to get their products to the markets.
And the marine terminal?
So it's interesting. I've been reading a little bit lately about this woman. I forget her name. She just wrote a book, but she's a forester in British Columbia, and the Port of Olympia is in the forestry business. Whether we think of it or not, we're part of that business, and I find it really interesting. She first published an article in Nature 25 years ago, and she coined the phrase the wood wide web, where her research showed that trees in a forest, actually they communicate with each other through mycelial networks, and she coined the term mother trees in a diverse forest that share resources and kind of take care of the other trees within the community. And it's fascinating to me that 25 years ago she wrote about this, and the science was clear that this was happening, and that there was a better way to manage our forests by allowing a diverse community of multi-species to grow. And yet our timber industry, our forestry industry, has remained very linear in their thought, and very much we plant Douglas fir, we spray pesticide to kill everything else, we destroy the soil, we destroy the watershed with our chemicals, and we grow only Douglas fir, and we chop them down and we do it again. And there is a lot of research in the last 2 decades, and maybe even going back further, to show that a diverse, healthy forest ecosystem is actually more productive. It can be managed in a different way, to leave the mother trees, to have multi-species growing together. And there are certifications, there are organizations that certify companies that are using more holistic forest practices. So if we're going to be in the forestry business, let's look at the contracts we have with companies to ship out of our marine terminal. Let's see if we can encourage them to be in a more sustainable, regenerative, holistic forestry business. And by the way, there are companies that are scrambling to buy these products that are Forest Council certified, that are we can add value to the products that are coming through our port by requiring a higher level of stewardship. So I think shipping raw logs to Asia is not a great long-term play, in my opinion. But I'm also not going to stand here and say we should shut down the marine terminal. It provides jobs, and it is an asset to our community. But I think that we need to diversify. We need to look to the future. We need to think about if we're going to be in the forestry business, let's be on the leading edge of forest practices. If we're going to be shipping from a deep water break bulk port, let's find let's get creative. Let's find other cargoes that we can ship through our port, and let's be intentional about the world we want to create with the business that we encourage to be here in our community.
You know, we're getting towards the end of our time. I mean, we could probably, we've just scratched the surface, I think, but this has been a great discussion. Here's one last question that came in that I think you could give a yes or no answer to. How do you feel about changing? This comes from Victor Manharis. How do you feel about changing the name of the airport back to the old name of Pioneer George Washington Bush Airfield?
I honestly, I haven't thought about it. I can tell you that I lobbied pretty hard to get the park here in Tumwater named Isabella Bush Park. At the time, it was the only thing in Tumwater, once they named it, the only thing in Tumwater named after a woman. Isabella Bush was part of that original wagon train that came out here and settled in Tumwater, and she has an amazing story. She was trained as a school teacher. She also brought the trees and the plants, including the bush butternut tree that unfortunately just recently fell over after 100 and some odd years. So there's some really interesting history in Tumwater, and I'd certainly be interested to learn more about if there's a movement to rename the airport. I'd be all ears to hear all about it. In that theme, I think that there are a lot of people in Thurston County that don't realize that the Port of Olympia is their port, that they contribute to that port, that they're paying taxes to the Port of Olympia. Whether they live in Grand Mound or Little Rock or Tenino, many people probably don't understand that the Port of Olympia has anything to do with them. And I think it's a matter of equity. Since we're all paying in, I'd like to have a discussion about the benefits of the port and if they're flowing equitably to all the people in the county. And maybe there should be a discussion about renaming the Port of Olympia the Port of Thurston County. I don't know, but it would certainly fit. It would certainly fit the I think it would help people to understand that the Port of Olympia really is the Port of Thurston County. It serves all of us, or it should be serving all of us, and we're all supporting it through our either through our property taxes, or if we rent, through our through our landlord's property taxes.
Well, thank you so much, Joel. Well,
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great night, everybody.